Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to put a digital matte on your photographs using a Photoshop technique. Let's get started. The first thing we need to do is open the image you want to matte into Photoshop. Now considering the size that you're going to print on, you're going to be cropping these to one of two sizes, fitting for an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper or a 13 by 19 sheet of paper. If doing any other custom work, you would have to do the math based on the size of the print you're making. Using the crop tool here, we're going to set some dimensions here. Traditionally it's unconstrained and have no numbers or ratios in these boxes. We're going to plug them in to fit for an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. If we wanted a 1-inch border on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, our ratio would have to be 9 by 6.5. Now you can see with that crop, we're losing some details on the side. If it was a vertical image, we'd probably lose up top or down below. So what I'm simply going to do is click and drag this crop side to side to where I like it. And then enter to apply that crop. Now, we're going to change the size of this image based on the size paper we're going to be printing on. So, image size, and you can see here that we have larger numbers. But in reality, this ratio is the same as a 9 by 6.5. By entering 9 as the largest width in inches here, you'll see that it automatically scales to 6.5 for that smaller dimension. And when we click OK, our image has now been sized back down to 9 inches by 6.5 inches. The next step is we're going to select all, edit, copy, and creating a new document by File, New. Now when you set up a new document, you want to make sure it's set to inches, not pixels. And whenever we create a new document after copying something in Photoshop, Photoshop wants to create an exact replica of the size of that image. But we want to create a new document the size of our paper that we're printing on. So our top number is going to go from, is going to go from 9 to 11, and our smaller number is going to go from 6.5 to 8.5, and make sure it stays in inches. When we click OK, we're going to create a new document with a transparent background. Make sure that when you create that new document, that background content is not white or a color. It must be transparent. Now, when we paste this image, it's going to center itself perfectly, and you're going to see we have this beautiful even border all around. Now when we print this, it's going to recognize the color detail, but leave everything that's in that transparent area the color of the paper, which should be white. Now, we're going to be adding our signature in here, but we have to make sure that our signature is extracted, because whenever we take something like this and put it on top of a transparent area, it's going to just show the white border. Just to demonstrate, I'm going to click, drag, hover over my new document, and drop. Now, when I change my blending mode to darken, traditionally what happens is that I lose the white. You can see that lettering popping out over that colored area, and the white disappears, but doesn't recognize anything to blend with behind it because it's transparent. To solve this, I'm just going to delete that top layer, we're going to extract the signature from the background. Using the magic wand brush, we're going to click in the white area, and holding Shift for that little plus sign, we're going to add into the areas that are not selected from the magic wand there. Now, all of the white has been selected. We're going to select, inverse that selection to copy just the signature. We're going to copy that, edit, copy, create a new document, and this should be saved separately as a Photoshop file. Again, we can see the inches. It's a pretty large signature because of how large I wrote it out and scanned it. And when I paste it, edit paste, I can see just the signature. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer, right-click and duplicate, and you'll see that signature just got a little bit darker. And I'm going to do it again, Command-J, just a quick key command, and then I'm going to merge these layers together and save this as a Photoshop document. The reason I'm saving it as a Photoshop document is because it will allow me to keep the transparent background. So now when I use my Move tool, click and drag my signature up to my new document and drop it, you'll see that only the signature pops up with no white background. I'm going to free transform, making sure I hold Shift while I change the size of that signature down to a reasonable size, hitting Enter to apply it, moving it where I like it. And then I'm going to use my Type tool, key command T, making sure my title is in quotes. I'm going to use a fairly small font, maybe 14 quotes, and titling The Patterns of Fall. And then I'll use my Move tool to move this over. As you can see, I accidentally made a capital A, so to fix our type, I'm going to click the Type tool, making sure I'm on my type layer, and then clicking in that area where the error is, hitting backspace and just correcting that. Now, a fun trick, if we highlight both the layers with our text and signature and go Layer, Align, Vertical Centers, that will line up perfectly the signature and lettering. It's hard to see, so what I'll do is I'll just move this down so you can see how that works. Again, we're going to select both of these, holding Shift and clicking. Layer, Align, Vertical Centers. You can see how it automatically adjusted, and with both of them selected using the Move tool, I can move this up using my arrows on my keyboard to refine. And now I've created that perfect matted photo. Now, the one thing that I'm missing here is a stroke to separate my photograph from my border here. To create a stroke, I'm simply going to double click my layer, and in the layer style, select stroke. Now, you'll see here there's a little bit of a black line that it's hard to see. As you increase that size, you'll see the stroke getting thicker. And you want to make sure that that stroke is on the inside, not the outside. Now, obviously, the larger the stroke, the more of that photo that's going to be taken up. So I'm going to keep my stroke size at around 10 pixels. And because it's very hard to see, what I'm going to do is change the color of it. We definitely don't want to keep a white border because when it's printed, we are not going to see a white on white stroke. Now, you can use the color picker here for any sort of color for that stroke. And you can see that just popped up blue, or I can go to pink or a light pink, whatever I want. But a really great technique is to actually hover into your photograph. And you can see when I go from the color picker to the photograph, I can pick individual individual colors within that photograph. And that will give me a much more accurate match to having a border to what matches within that photograph. So I'm just going to click around until I find something that I like. I think I liked that red before. Really nice, makes it pop. And I'm going to click OK on the color. and click OK on that size. Now if I ever wanted to change my mind, I have my layer styles right here. I can easily double click and go right back into that stroke, change the color if I wanted, or the size. Whoops, have to apply that color first, of course. Bringing that stroke size down. But you do want it to be visible. This should be saved as a Photoshop document because it will retain all of those layers and we can see it as a transparent background instead of a solid background. Merging it to a JPEG will merge everything together and you will lose the transparency. As a Photoshop document, saved. And that's how you create a digital mat. Stepping back, if we were going to print for a 13 by 19 sheet of paper, let me just close this out here. If we were going to be printing on a 13 by 19 sheet of paper, our crop would be 11 by 17. Thinking about that 1-inch border around an 11 by 17 brings you up to 13 by 19. Little math involved, I know. Again, we would hit that crop tool. Instead of 9 by 6.5, this time we would go to 17 by 11. This actually gives me a much better area of coverage for that photograph, still losing a little bit on the bottom, but I'll keep this. Enter twice. This time, whoops. This time, again, you'll see my size is up even though my ratio is smaller than that, so I will highlight that top number, make it the top number, 17. You can see it scales to the exact size. Sorry, this is taking a little bit. My computer is not fast. Down, we're just going to create a new document of the new paper size, 13 by 19. And again, when it comes to customizing sizes for something like a panorama, you would have to determine the print size, the canvas size, or the printer paper size, and putting whatever size border you want, whether it be 1 inch, 1/2 inch, 2 inch, and just do that math.